Minnesota. I am Rahana Power.
I'm Alan Tracy.
And today we have a very exciting guest on after about a year and a half, 57 episodes, Melodie Bahan. Thank you so much for joining us again. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to see you both.
This is wonderful. It really has been, like a year and a half, 2.5 years. Oh my
Right?
goodness. Time. The last year and a half in itself just seems like nothing. So it's been even longer. You joined us back in March of 2019 for one of our first episodes, and we really got to learn about, MN Film TV and your role there, and the amazing things that you do for, Minnesota Film and TV here. And now we've had some exciting updates since we got to talk to you last, and so we just wanted to catch up and see, what has changed since March of 2019.
Oh my God. 2019 seems a lifetime ago. And March of 2019 we would have been still in the middle of a legislative session when I was here. And that was that was the first time that we had ever introduced a film production tax credit program at the legislature. We have a rebate program that we have had here in Minnesota since 1997, I believe, 98. But we have never had a tax credit program. And we can get into kind of what a tax credit program is and what it means. But when I came in, I really felt it was important that we get a tax credit here in Minnesota. And so we started in 2019, and it just passed into law and was signed by the governor on July 1st. And in political years, this is surprisingly fast. Having just introduced it in 2019, to get it passed in 2021 is a huge accomplishment. And this year was, we approached it differently. We had different kind of support, and it just all came together. So we're thrilled.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
So you say we've had a rebate program. I'm gonna make us break it down real simple and basic. But so how is a rebate program different than a tax credit? And are both of them sort of aligned now so both can be utilized if needed?
Yes. So they're very different programs, and they serve different kinds of projects better, each one. We do now currently have both programs, although neither one of them I can get into details on timing. But let's look first at a rebate program. A rebate is a direct appropriation from the legislature of a certain amount of money each year in the budget. And so when a project applies for the program, they get certified based on their application, and then they go and they make their film or their TV show or whatever they're doing. And when it's all finished, they submit all of their paperwork, their expenses get verified, everything gets checked, and they get a check from us for up to 25% of the qualified expenditures. So it's basically, it's a cash rebate is what they get. And what rebates really are great for are the smaller projects, the lower budget projects. So they're great for indie films because, a lot of people that you may be maxing out your credit card to make your film. And so This is a really, yes, Alan says. So a cash rebate is just, it's simple, it's straightforward, it's easy. So we are thrilled that we still have that program. What it doesn't work great for is large budget projects, major motion pictures, major feature films, or a television series. For a couple of reasons, the most important one being that the legislature will never appropriate the kind of money that you would need to attract larger budget projects. Right. So a rebate program ours has been for the last 6 years, I think. It's capped at $500,000 per fiscal year. So, if you work in the industry, you know how far that goes. So generally we run out of money in that program fairly quickly. So the tax credit was something that we wanted to pass in order to attract larger projects to the state, and also because a tax credit is a more stable incentive program. And we can certainly dive right into how they work.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Please do.
Please do. Okay.
I know it's 25% of the projects, like at least, I mean, you can also, I know up north, there's a different one, right? That it's a little different.
Right. And I'll talk about some of those too.
Okay.
But let me explain a tax credit, because this is a brand new program. Minnesota has never had a tax credit program. So it takes some getting used to. A lot of other states, and in fact, every state that has a really strong production industry has a tax credit incentive. Minnesota's is, at this point, we have the smallest program in the country, but that's okay. We can build on that. So what we have is the legislature has appropriated close to $5 million per tax year, per calendar year, for 4 years. Now, originally, we had asked for $25 million in tax credits for 10 years. But of course, it got whittled back, and we're happy to start with this really low level and prove that it works, and then talk about expanding it. So the way tax credits work is that a project comes in, it has to be a minimum $1 million in qualified expenditures in the state. So obviously we're looking for larger budget projects for this. So a project will apply to this program. They will get pre-certified by the state for the tax credit. They will produce their project, their film, their television series, and when they are done, they will go through a required CPA audit. The state will then look at their materials, and if everything passes muster, they will then be issued a credit, a certificate for tax credits of up to 25% of the qualified expenditures. So nobody ever gets a check. There's no money changing hands. What you have at the end of the project is a certificate for tax credits, which you can use on a tax liability in Minnesota for the next couple of years. So what that means is, if you don't have a tax liability in Minnesota, if you're not a Minnesota resident or you're not a Minnesota company, this is a transferable tax credit. And that means that you can sell it. So, or you can you're financing your film against these tax credits. And there is an entire industry that exists to buy and sell tax credits.
Wow.
In the production world and in the housing world, and any area in which there are tax credits, and there are a lot of them, there exist industries that market them and broker them. So if you
Wow.
don't, yeah, I know, isn't that great?
Yeah.
If you don't have a tax liability in Minnesota, you will sell your credits to a broker at, you're not going to get a dollar for dollar. It's going to be, 95, 93 cents on the dollar that you're going to get.
Hmm.
And that broker will then turn around and sell those credits to a Minnesota based company that can use the credits on a future tax liability. So what it does, it's great for production. It allows projects to come here and spend a tremendous amount of money, hire a lot of people, pay taxes on those wages and all of the spend that they make. And then if they don't need it, it allows a Minnesota company to get a tax credit in the future. So it's great for business. It's great for the industry. It's complicated. It's not something I would recommend a first-time filmmaker try and do on his or her own.
Dang it.
Yeah, dang it. Unless you have a deal with HBO or, a studio that has a department that knows how to deal with tax credits.
Yeah.
So that's your next step, Alan.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll be in touch with Netflix next, so I'll let you know.
I think it sounds like the right plan.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, that's what a tax credit is.
Wow.
That is
Okay.
really cool.
Yeah.
So you said for right now, it's a maximum of 5 million per calendar year for 4 years.
Exactly.
So then in 4 years, is that the point where we're going to be like representing this idea, saying this is how successful it was, fingers crossed, extremely successful, and try and then build on that?
Yeah. Although, we will certainly, the next budget cycle, when they would be looking at tax law, will be in 2 years. So we'll certainly approach the legislature then with kind of interim data to show them, what we have been able to accomplish, how many jobs, how much money has come into the state. What we've seen in other states that have passed these tax credit programs is that a lot of them, the legislature passes a program that's relatively small and for a limited amount of time. And before they reach the end of that time period, they've all gone back to the legislature, shown that it works. Legislatures have extended or eliminated the sunsets altogether, increased the number of tax credits available. So we're hopeful that will happen here as well.
Yeah, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, I remember when the call to action was to email senators and representatives. That's part of what I was putting out there, was just like, this helps create jobs like electricians, carpenters, like all these things. And then I didn't even know about the financial market, like that part of it. Like, I was like, okay, yes, we have a lot of banks in Minnesota, so financial institutions. So of course they'd want to, invest in some of those credits. So
yeah, absolutely. I know that I don't know if they work specifically in production tax credits, but I know that like US Bank deals in tax credits in other industries. So it would make perfect sense for them to want to be a part of this as well.
Right. And if they're involved in other states, then of course they have something, and then they would most likely establish something to get their hands on that money too. So, I mean, why not? If it's a $10 million film or something, it's like, or series or whatever,
right?
Or even, another Oscar contender from the Coens or something, it's just like things like that.
Yeah.
So I remember the last time we had you on and we were talking about this before, anything like got passed now. You had mentioned that there were some exciting productions that wanted to come here, but because we didn't have this in place, that obviously didn't work. Is there any sort of anything that you're anticipating maybe coming here because of this, or hope any like good hopeful prospects, or is it really just at this point hoping to hear from anyone?
Well, it's a lot of the things that that were on the horizon back in 2019 actually got made in other states and Canada. And with the pandemic and everything being shut down, there just hasn't been much activity other than, people planning. So now that this is passed, we are going to go into overdrive in marketing this credit to the industry, and reaching out to networks and studios that have projects in development that might be a good fit for this. I mean, this is not, it's not a big enough program to attract a, $40 million project. But it is a big enough program to attract a $15 million film or, a small TV series. So there's a lot we can do with it. And I also think that because we are still as a country, in the process of kind of opening up and getting back to work, there are folks looking at locations outside their usual spots, like, can we go someplace other than Georgia right now? Or can we maybe get out of LA at the moment? And because Minnesota's vaccination rate is really high, and, our infection rate is relatively low, and I mean, there's so much that we have to offer. It's a new location. It's fresh. It hasn't been shot to death. So I think there are going to be a lot of people who are certainly going to be interested. So right now, though, this is a brand new program, which means that it doesn't exist. So we started immediately on the work that needs to be done with the Department of Employment and Economic Development and the Department of Revenue to create the guidelines and application, all the materials. So nobody can apply to the program yet because we don't have those. It's going to take us a little while. So we certainly want to promote it, but I can't say definitively when people are going to be able to apply. It could be, 2 months. It could be longer. So I don't want to make any promises. But the good thing is that if we go into the end of the calendar year and the credits have not been used or applied for, certified, what we have for this calendar year will roll over. So instead of 5 million for the next calendar year, we would have 10.
So
excellent. It's not like
that's really nice.
Yeah, it's not like we're going to lose them.
Good.
Yeah.
So when someone does apply, how long or I suppose as we're like creating this process now, do we anticipate how long that application process goes until they, find out, yes, you're certified or anything like that?
We don't have those kinds of details yet, but by law, tax credit programs must be done on a first come, first served basis. So once the guidelines and the application are ready to go, then it's going to be, the applications will be processed as they come in.
Okay. Wow. What expanding away from the tax stuff, because I know you're figuring in the program, you're figuring that all out. Mm-hmm. What do you kind of hope for the local effect? Like what types of jobs will come out of this? What can we do to get ready for what's coming locally?
Yes, great question. So this is going to mean jobs, and at the budget level of projects that we're hoping to attract, it's going to mean really more union level jobs. As everyone knows, our industry, once you get above a certain budget level, is very, very union driven, which is great because that means that there are benefits, there's pension, there's all of these great things. So it's going to mean a lot of union jobs. What I would hope people do immediately is get yourself listed in the production directory that currently exists on minnesotafilmandtv.org. Know that that is going to be updated in the next few months, but if you go ahead and get your free listing now, that'll just get updated along with the rest of the site. But I would also urge anybody that is below the line crew to take a look at Array Crew. That's Ava DuVernay's company. It's a platform that they launched earlier this year to give studios access and get in front of them below the line crew who maybe get overlooked, who have not had the opportunities that other crew have. So it is it's something that is being supported financially by all of the major studios and streaming services, and those are the only ones who have access to the database, which means that if you set up a profile in there, you're not going to get called about a volunteer project. These are legitimate projects, and it's important to me that our local folks sign up for this, because I was such a pain in the ass to the Array folks when they launched this, because they launched it in the major markets in LA and Chicago and Atlanta and New York. And I pushed and pushed and pushed, and they added Minneapolis, St. Paul, Rochester, and Duluth.
Oh, so, thank you, Melodie. Thank you.
Thank you.
So yes, so please don't make a fool of me. That's, show them that we have great crew here, and it is below the line crew. You need 1 credit in order to get a profile there. So let's everybody do that.
Yes, please. Array Crew, is that, what's the website?
Yes. It's arraycrew.org or com. Okay. I can't remember, but yeah, it's Array Crew. You'll find it.
Okay. We'll find it and put it in the show notes.
Great.
I guess also, this is interesting time to be in Minnesota. I mean, a lot of people were exodusing towards LA now that things are kind of changing. Well, maybe they're not now, but since California is kind of going back into that lockdown state, but who knows? But also like I held out for this, I was like, let's see what happens here first. Cause Minnesota, I mean, I'm obviously, the first time we met, Melodie, I told you, I was impressed. I was like, okay, I like where this is going. So let's see, and you've seen it through, I mean, thick and thin here.
Yeah.
Tell us about that journey. Like when you started to where we are now, just kind of like that pendulum, so to speak.
Man, we had a little gathering recently to just get back together in person and socialize and celebrate. And I said to people at that event, when I started, and I took this job in 2017, I came in with a huge, very, very, kind of optimistic agenda. And then I got smacked in the face with the reality of both, running the organization as a nonprofit and also the dealing with the legislature. And it's a slog, because we were trying to do something that they were not used to, that they weren't familiar with. I mean, they didn't know from tax credits. And a lot of the pushback that we got in those first couple of years is, well, don't you have that snow bait thing? Why can't you? Or the thing that really made me crazy, oh, isn't this an arts program? No, it's not an arts program. It's a jobs program. So it was, that re-education was really kind of, a push. But in the intervening years, I feel like we have done a lot of really good things that have kind of laid the groundwork for where we are. We want to hold on to the rebate program because, as I said, it really does serve a very distinct purpose and is really good for Minnesota creators, Minnesota filmmakers and directors, producers. But it was being run with basically no standards of professionalism. It was, if you can fill out the application, you will get certified for the program. And, that's just not a good, that's just not a good way to use taxpayer dollars, because it wasn't fulfilling the goals of the program. So it was certifying projects that were, I don't know, maybe a little more amateur, less professional, not paying people or having, and so we completely revised the guidelines and the application process for that program, in an effort to, help kind of bring the professionalism of the industry up a notch. And I think that's good for the entire community, because to me, the important thing is that people get paid for their work. Whether that is, you get paid on a union project, or even if it's a low budget, no union contract, at least you have a written agreement. You have, some recourse if you don't get paid, or if the project goes south or something. So I'm really proud of the work that we've done on that. But a lot of the big optimistic plans that I had were really based on, well, first we have to get a tax credit, and then we can talk about job training. So, now it comes the fun part. We get this program up and running. We start getting some projects here and the work here. Maybe some of those Minnesotans who had to leave the state to find work start coming home, and we start creating a pipeline for training new workers, young people into the industry, people who don't have necessarily entree into the industry, but we can offer that. And you can use incentives in either a carrot or stick kind of way. You can require in these programs that if you're going to get the tax credit, you must hire a certain number of interns from a particular zip code, or you have to have training opportunities for this number of students, or you must hire, you get a bump for some diversity goals, or, there's all kinds of things you can do. And that may not happen in the first year, but I think that's something to look toward and, look at what other states are doing with it. But to me, it is so important that we use this opportunity to bring younger people, and primarily people of color, into this industry in Minnesota, where there hasn't been the opportunity. There hasn't been the jobs, first of all. But now that there will be, we need more workers. And so we've got to create that pipeline. So that's one thing I'm just really excited about.
Yeah. Minnesota has to prepare for arms, just get ready. It's coming,
Yeah.
uh, more than likely within a year, maybe roughly, I'd
Oh,
say.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And we'll see how COVID goes. It's a
Ugh,
weird dance, right? So,
yeah.
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 But I mean, the thing about like, I remember coming back from LA to Minnesota saying no budget film, which meant to me like under X amount of thousand, right?
Yeah.
And everyone else here thought it meant no money. And I was
Yeah.
like, that's not what I meant. So there was a miscommunication on like what I meant by no budget.
Yeah.
And yeah, that there's a whole different spectrum of film based on that. But in Minnesota, it was kind of like, oh, that means I'm not getting paid. And it's like,
Mm.
that's not what I meant. That's what
Yeah.
others mean, maybe. But like
Yeah.
you mentioned, things that we're getting the credit, or I mean, the snowbait maybe, or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just things that, need to be revised. And
Yeah.
you need to have a budget, something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And the other thing that I think is going to be so great for folks in the community is that so many creators, so many filmmakers, people who work in the industry have had to have day jobs of one kind, and create their work on their own time. Well, do you want to be a barista or do you want to be a PA on a feature film? If you're going to choose a day job, why not work in the industry?
be a
So
barista on a set, so I'll do that.
yes, there you go. Best of both worlds.
Yeah, the Green Mountain is produced here, so we'll just get them imported. But what else? So there was that, like, kind of the disconnect on that, but then there was also like I don't know, just I anyways. I'm just happy we have it now, and we're moving towards a state where we can actually become a serious player. And like you said, in a time where they're making multiple Star Wars, multiple things that need locations that look like something, and if they use locations.
Mm-hmm.
But things where it's like all these streaming services are building new content left and right, and they all need their own originals.
Right.
Even
And
Apple.
Minnesota has so much to offer,
Yeah.
especially location wise. You can find anything.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah.
and they're leaving certain states because of political reasons and things, and we have certain alignments that are that match. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we have a lot of fun ahead of us now, a lot of fun stuff to promote, and
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it. Last thing, Melody, I guess, what are you looking forward to the most here? Like, what is the thing that really keeps you going now?
Now it's just there is, for the first time since I started this job there, and I got that recently at this event that we had, there is such a sense of optimism for the first time about the industry. It's been a common refrain when I talk to folks who have been around for a while that they talk about the old days, the glory days, and people are actually now talking about the future. And that is so fantastic, because I feel like we do have a future now.
We just had that episode where we talked about Minnesota films of the past.
Yes.
And now we're having this one.
I love Grumpy Old Men, but if I never have to hear about that again, I will be very happy.
Or Jingle All the Way. It's just like,
Yes,
okay. Yes. Maybe we can get Mighty Ducks back,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us, Melody. This has been great. I think, we have a lot to look forward to now. And we can keep Minnesota our home for film. and expand on that, I think. So
Yeah. Well, let's check back in after the first of the year and see how we're doing.
I'd love that.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah,
Great.
hopefully
Thank
it
you
won't
so
be
much.
like over Zoom and everything. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, in person.
Yeah. All right.
Well, thank you both.
Yeah.
Thank you, Melody.
And for Film in Minnesota, thank you for listening. We'll see you guys next time.